Now, on the subject of election financing and its implications on the economy and the country at large. First of all, it's true that any campaign of whatever nature has to be funded. Any campaign, whether you're campaigning for LC1, these days when people are campaigning, I remember I first saw my friend Mao as a politician when we were at Makerere, when he was campaigning to become guild president. And during those campaigns at Makerere, some sweets will pass around the halls of residence, especially in the girls' halls of residences. And Bernard is talking about quorum in the Makerere sense, you know what it means. So any election of whatever nature has to be funded. Now, when it comes to an election, a general election like election for president, election for members of parliament, election for chairperson, and so forth, there are certain financing which you cannot avoid. Take, for instance, Uganda now has 112 districts. The law requires a candidate reach at least each of the districts. There is no way you will reach all the districts without the fuel to put in a vehicle to reach there. There is no way you reach those districts without some teams organizing for you. You have to make announcements on radios. You have to buy airspace on the radios to be able to talk if you need to. So there's no election which is not funded. You hear even on the polling day itself, you by law, each candidate is supposed to have at least 2 agents who are officially recognized there. Others people can keep in the background, but at least the 2 agents of a candidate must be there. Can have 1, but the maximum is 2. Even those, they demand to be facilitated that I have stayed here the whole day from 7 to maybe 6 by the time they finish and counting. So each and every aspect of a campaign has to be funded. In some countries, now the question is, what is the source of funding? How do the candidates, how do the parties raise funds? In many polities, some parties do businesses as a source of funding. Either like real estate or whatever form of business which is brings in money. But the best form of party funding is contributions from members. Some of the parties sell party cards, party insignia, T-shirts, and so on and so forth. Some are sold by the parties themselves, or by the party, by the machinery, and so forth. In order to raise funds, even to run a party, forget about the campaign itself. You have now a 5-year in between the general campaigns. But in between those years, you are either at an office where you're paying rent, if you haven't constructed your own office, you must spend some money. So the question still remains, what is the source of this fund, of these parties? In the case of the NRM, it did its best to run a modest budget.
Moses Byarhanga really concentrated much on the implications of the of election financing, but it would be also useful for us if we could also look at the implications on deepening our democracy on the in our country. This linking election financing with deepening of our democracy, with the implication on the peace and stability of our country, and actually whether we will see more people participate in elections, because I think this election was the most expensive election this country has ever had. Perhaps it could be demobilizing for people or perhaps it's going to be to encourage more people to run. So as you prepare to respond to Moses and Norbert Mao's presentations to you, please be broad enough to move beyond what Moses Byarhanga has told us, to look at the implications of this election in this country, the conduct of elections and its implications, both actually in the country and in the region.
My brother Moses Byarhanga has not done justice to this topic, and therefore he should repeat the presentation. This is not a talk show. We expected you to come and tell us methods of fundraising. Do you write letters? Or do you look at the list of those who have been awarded government tenders and you go to collect your share under the guise of perpetuating prosperity? Are you going to publish the accounts as required by law within 30 days? And we want ACORD to bring the accounts and have subject them to a microscopic inspection. In short, this debate is about accountability. There is no culture of accountability in our society. In the same way that even parents don't account to their children. One day in my political rally, my father came and reminded the audience about me and what I did when I was about 12 years old. I felt that he was a bit of a dictator. I felt that he was not listening, so I demanded a family meeting to discuss how we relate. So he told the rally in Buikwe that this son of mine, Norbert Mao, said that they as children don't see things necessarily the way I see them. And I should respect the way they see things. That was my first revolt. It was around the dining table at home. As some of you who know, my father is a retired military officer. Some of his offenses, in our opinion, was not allowing us to eat in the car, which we thought was really, really a very grievous offense. Parents should allow children who have not finished their bread at the dining table to eat it as they drive to school. I'm sure now Arthur cannot even think of stopping his children from eating in the car. They can even say, "Stop here, I have seen something." He also insisted that he would never tell us that now we are going. He sits in the car and just turns on the ignition and drives away. And he was now supposed to walk, which was quite a distance. So I decided to risk Egyptian style. And with my cowering siblings, we put our petition. So, are Ugandans ready to demand accountability? I think that's the other side. Because unless it is demanded, it will not be offered. And this goes across the board. The donors don't account to us. I was a member of parliament for 10 years. One time I wrote to the president of the World Bank. And I said, "You don't share with us the documents of the loans." That's when we founded the parliamentary network on the World Bank, which still subsists to today. The current president is, just switch that thing off, don't worry. The president of the World Bank wrote to me, also the president of the IMF, because they were not sharing with parliamentarians details of loans. Beatrice was with us in Parliament when we were fighting to have the Budget Act of Parliament passed. So, this is also a forum for celebrating the little victories that we have had. The NGOs are not accountable also. I'm not a member of the board of ACORD and so on. But from what I hear, NGOs are also not accountable. You know, I threw out a number of NGOs from Gulu. ACORD was never thrown out of Gulu. For failing to be accountable. I have sat in many meetings where we get lectured about accountability by those who don't want to be subjected to accountability themselves. The parliamentarians don't want to account. I think there's an MP for Kasese who has been accused of forging signatures of recipients of the Community Development Fund. I think there's a case. Church leaders don't want to account. Right now, the Islamic faith is splitting because of lack of accountability, selling properties and so on. So, the real issue is accountability. Once we accept that and set the parameters, then we are not going to have a problem.
No, it's really to emphasize the point that you and Edmond made. That the whole essence of this platform is to come for us to come in here with their parties or with our political orientation, but we discuss as Ugandans that at the end of the day, they are looking at the election. There are those who will say the election has been a sham. Who will say that they are not accepting the results like the opposition has said. But then we say, okay, we have a president who has been sworn in. So for us as Ugandans, how do we make sure that we move our president to a level where he can be able to help our country move forward? Whether I am in the opposition or I'm in the ruling party, that we can be able to subject some of those sentiments to be able to look beyond our political groups. That is really, for me, that what I think needs to remain the essence of our discussion in this group.
Yes, Mr. Tegure.
Thank you very much, Arthur. Just a quick run through. In terms of economic implications, I think we need to focus on the depletion of savings available. I think we need to look at what are the implications when the available savings are depleted, because every election time, a lot of money is gotten from the banks and from wherever else and spent into the election. So we need to consider that, depletion of savings. Number two, I expect many banks should stagger in the next 1-2 years because a lot of money has been withdrawn from them. So the performance of the banks must be watched carefully over the next 5 years, especially for the next 2 years beginning. And of course, insurance as well could stagger quite a bit. Now, number three, I expect businesses to shake a bit. So we should look at how will businesses perform over the next 2 years will be critical. How would we manage them? The next 2 years especially. And then we see in the long term. So those are three issues that we must focus on, and which means also a recommendation that at this stage we must manage the next 2 years very, very carefully as a country. And lastly, on the topic itself, I thought we should consider the legality of sourcing. Where did this money come from? I think it was considered quite a bit. The legality of the sourcing, and two, the legality of the spending. How was that money dispensed, and was that legal? In terms of sourcing the cash, I suggest two things apart from what Moses Beruhanga told us were individual party member contributions. Number one, there was conversion of government programs. I think the NADS was very, very critical. I studied in Eastern Uganda, and just before elections, the NADS came in, and they said, I didn't make it. But I think they said, to benefit from the NADS, you must be an NRM member, and you must pledge allegiance to the NRM, or else we don't give you you don't benefit from the NADS. So a lot of these were used to get votes for the NRM. Number two, I suggest there was money fished from the treasury to finance many of the things. There was so much money. In a country like this, in an economy like this, it is impossible to have that kind of money unless it is being gotten directly from the treasury. Let me look at how was this money spent. Number one, cash handouts door to door. I witnessed that firsthand. Number two, essential commodities distributed door to door. I witnessed that firsthand because I was a candidate. And of course, the thing is, they were doing that, and then they made sure they packed police at my door so that I could not do the same thing. I didn't have the money to do that, by the way, but they didn't believe it. So they packed police at my door. They said, you're going nowhere. And everywhere where there were agents, the police was posted there, said, you're going nowhere, while they were doing the same thing. Number three, security operatives were funded specifically to undermine certain candidates, Nandala Mafabi being one of them. Our end, a lot of the potential operation cadets, security operatives were directly financed by the state. Number four, polling logistics. I suggest the NRM had alternate ballot papers. I guarantee you this one, because the things we saw, there was no way these ballot papers could have come from anywhere else. So I think a lot of that money went there. And number five on that point, money dished out at polling stations. Before you vote, they give you money, said, vote the bus, tick the bus, tick the bus. It happened everywhere in eastern Uganda. It happened in northern Uganda. And that's why I think the NRM actually got votes from northern Uganda. It was a purchased victory, Moses. It was those people never voted with their hearts. I can guarantee you that. I have first-hand information on this one. And lastly, I thought we could consider apart from the economic implications, the democratic implications. And very quickly, number one, the free agency of the people was negated. I don't think many people voted for Museveni with their hearts or with their own volition. Number two, people, many of them will have lost faith in the elections because it is clear you don't have to be a good candidate to win. All you need is a bit of money and state backing to win the elections. Number three, wrong leaders will continue to be voted in the future. Number four, the appeal, and this is my most worrying bit of it, that now undemocratic means of accessing power will now increase in appeal. People will want to use undemocratic means to get power. I get worried when I see this. So my feeling is that if we see any civil disturbances or civil war breaking out, we should not be surprised. I think it's inevitable. And lastly, Bamwine was asking, are we building the country? I don't think so. Bamwine, Moses Hanga, my feeling is the NRM, and from the bottom of my heart, from what I've seen on the grassroots, the months have been there, you have destroyed this country by the money that was spent, the stress structures that were spent, that were used to frustrate the position. I think you've destroyed this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.